Hello and welcome to The Window, brought to you by talkSPORT Bet. My name is Harry Durham. Let's get straight into it then. Ben Jacobs is on the line. There have been some huge developments in the future of Alexander Isak. The last 6 to 12 hours have been crazy. Ben, what is the latest on Alexander Isak's future?
Yeah, a crazy day in the future of Alexander Isak, and yet still a lot of complications and a lack of clarity. In the morning, Liverpool made their formal move. My understanding is they bid £110 million, no add-ons. So a slightly different kind of structure and deal to the ballpark when they inquired a few weeks back, where they indicated that they were prepared to bid 120 million. But of course, 110 million with no add-ons, that's a guaranteed fee. So still quite competitive, but not quite a British transfer record. It was rejected, and the rebuttal from Newcastle was both quick and strong. And now we're in a situation where, as of now, and I stress as it stands, Liverpool have got no plans to make a second bid. So we heard some reports in the immediate aftermath that another offer might be presented. At the moment, that's not the case. And Liverpool never wanted to bid blind or repeatedly. So the fact that they moved definitely showed some confidence. And why wouldn't they be? Because terms with Isak are not a problem. He's driving for the move. But Newcastle United's response was so emphatic that that optimism when they placed the bid has very quickly turned to pessimism. It is a long window. It's worth stressing that. Newcastle could find attackers. Isak, now the bid is formal, could really push. So I think we're in a situation where two things are going to happen. Either number one, the opposite extreme, Isak somehow ends up signing a new deal, but it gives him some kind of out in 12 months' time. Number two, Liverpool have no plans to bid now, but could there be a situation where in the coming weeks, if Isak doesn't want to train with the team, if Isak doesn't want to make himself available for the opening weekend of the Premier League season, if Newcastle find replacements, could a series of things add up that suddenly mean Newcastle United initiate new contact with Liverpool and say now is the right time to bid, there is a deal to be had? And under those circumstances, you would think that Liverpool still might be back. But right now, and I stress as it stands again, Liverpool have no plans to come back in with an imminent second offer.
So right now, can we officially say that it is off? But it could actually, the tide could turn in the next couple of weeks because we've got a long time in August still to go.
Yeah, I've covered enough windows to know that you can never say never. Something is accurate now, but we can't get a crystal ball out and say that a series of dominoes couldn't fall into place later in the window and Liverpool changed their mind. But right now, they think that Newcastle's response was so emphatic that they want to walk away. And that diffuses the situation. It takes the pressure off. It means if they want to work discreetly, they could. But I'm not expecting another bid in a matter of hours or even days. I think first now, it's an internal consideration for Newcastle, i.e., how does Isak react to the possibility that Liverpool won't return? And what can Newcastle do now they're heading back from Asia to reintegrate Isak into the team? And that's very much a Newcastle problem. If they solve it, in likelihood, Isak will sign a new deal, and potentially quite quickly, like with Morgan Gibbs-White. If they can't solve it, the complexion may change. And that's where, of course, Liverpool are still waiting. They're not just going to pull an offer of the magnitude of 110 million. But something has to happen on the Newcastle United side now to give Liverpool encouragement that they thought they had when they placed the bid. But after seeing how quick and emphatic Newcastle's rebuttal was, Liverpool have decided now that if they are to bid again, it will either come later in the window or it will come at any point in time when Newcastle United Football Club call them up and say, actually, we do want to engage. If that contact and encouragement doesn't come, then Liverpool are prepared to walk away and potentially revisit the deal in a year's time.
Are they worried, Newcastle that is, that if they bring in a new number 9, it might be a bit of a scramble because they've had no pre-season with the football club and it's all about them trying to gel in as well. Then on the other side of it, we hear reports that Alexander Isak is actually training with his former club Real Sociedad. I mean, this could get, he's adored by the Newcastle fans. Like, let's get that right. But this could actually turn out to be potentially very, very toxic, especially, and we'll come on to this, Benjamin Šeško now being linked to Manchester United. So, I mean, it's not good news anyway for Newcastle, because if Isak stays, you've potentially got a player on the books that doesn't actually want to be there.
Yeah, I think first of all, why is the bid rejected? Because maybe Newcastle's valuation is higher. Maybe they feel Liverpool will just go to a bigger number. The bid made was £110 million, no add-ons. The approach that Liverpool made a few weeks ago was more in line with the British transfer record. Remember, £110 million is not a British transfer record. There's deals that surpass that number if you include the add-ons. So I think first and foremost, even though it's clear Liverpool thought they would go higher with a fixed fee, give Newcastle all the guaranteed money to move in the market and say, if it is that high, then we're not going to give you any add-ons. But if you're Newcastle United, you're probably thinking, is that first formal offer the last formal offer? Is that first formal offer the best that they're prepared to make? So it would be normal to turn down a first offer of this magnitude. But the point here is Newcastle haven't gone, that's the starting point. If you add 15 million in add-ons and go up by 5 or 10, we'll have a conversation with you. They've gone no, and effectively not given a counter, not even gone to this number of £150 million that many insiders think is the true valuation, and they would find it hard to reject. So Liverpool have actually entered hoping to bid with confidence, which was always their plan, and exited with such a quick and emphatic answer that sources at Liverpool now state they're not going to bid again unless anything absolutely dramatic changes. But where I think we need to leave the door open is just, and this context is obviously key, number one, this is club-changing money for Newcastle. They can bring in 3 or 4 players potentially and satisfy any PSR concerns, although they're healthier now compared to 12 months ago. 2 is, what happens if Isak reacts to this and instead of thinking, uh-oh, the door's shut, I better reintegrate, what if he doubles down? We don't know the answer to that question at the time of recording. So maybe Newcastle will say, we've rejected it. Does Isak react by showing a willingness to sign a new deal or at least reintegrate with the squad? And does that put Newcastle in a stronger position? Does he stay at Real Sociedad and say, I'm not returning, I'm never playing for this football club again? That puts a completely different complexion on the whole saga. So in some ways, the ball is in the court of Alexander Isak. Does he go public? Could there be a statement? Does he refuse to return? And again, does that change things? Which is why I think this Liverpool point of, number one, as it stands, we're not bidding again. But number 2, if Newcastle come to Liverpool and say, actually, we've changed our mind, there could still be a deal to be had. And that may depend on Isak. It's a stick or twist moment. If he believes Liverpool's stance is genuine, then he may return. He may engage with Newcastle. Who knows? He might even sign a new deal, perhaps with an out, a release clause or something allowing him to go in a year. But if actually he doubles down his position, then Newcastle United might need to reach out to Liverpool. And then the other factor, as we've said many times, is regardless of Alexander Isak, what if Newcastle won the race over Manchester United for Benjamin Šeško? What if they bid and succeeded for a Nicholas Jackson or an Ollie Watkins? What if Brentford are prepared to sell Johan Wissa? If 2 attackers became gettable for Newcastle, that changes the whole complexion as well. And in many ways, if they got those 2 attackers, some say they'd kind of be spending that Alexander Isak money, so then they might want it and encourage it. So I think this is still quite a complex situation, and Liverpool's position now may not categorically be their position a little bit later in the window, which is why people should definitely grasp the context here. Liverpool have no plans to bid as it stands, but could something change that actually means a second bid still comes? Absolutely.
It's so exhausting, isn't it? Being a football fan, being a broadcaster, producer sometimes, when all of these stories are absolutely sensational. But we could go to right at the end of the window. Which would you say right now? It's time for not only Newcastle and Liverpool fans to buckle up. It could be an absolute roller coaster for football fans worldwide because everyone wants to know where Alexander Isak is going to be.
Yeah, I think Newcastle will want to resolve it quickly. So that's what I mean about the stick or twist moment. They will now understand if Liverpool back off, even for a matter of hours or days, does Isak return? And if he shows a willingness, you might get a Morgan Gibbs-White type situation where he signs a new deal quite quickly. If he refuses to do that, you are probably looking at this dragging on. And I think there comes a point in time where Newcastle may have to start planning without Isak if he refuses to reintegrate, and then Liverpool are in a much stronger position. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and I think the next clue or part of this saga is Isak himself. How does he react to a rejected bid? Does he say, okay, it may not happen, and then actually you have a mending of the relationship and a reintegration, or does he double down? And if he doubles down and effectively says, I'm not doing a pre-season, I'm not coming back, I'm not making myself available for Premier League selection, then obviously the situation becomes a bit more untenable. So this is going to resolve itself in two ways, in my opinion. First, Isak speaks to Newcastle and either smooths it over, knowing he's got an out to leave in a year's time and stays. And I think that would happen more quickly. Or alternatively, he just digs in. And the longer he digs in, I personally think the more likely it is that Liverpool change their stance, even though as of today, the club position is that they don't plan to bid again.
Let's move over to Manchester United quickly, who are currently on their pre-season tour. They're in the Premier League Summer Series over in the States. Rasmus Hojlund, the future of him at Old Trafford is an interesting one. He spoke to some of the media a couple of days ago and spoke to the United stand and said he wants to fight for his place and stay at Manchester United. Only 14 goals in his first two seasons at Old Trafford, Ben. Now, it's been reported that RB Leipzig might be interested in this swap deal, which would see Hojlund go to Germany and Benjamin Šeško head to Manchester. It's believed that other clubs are interested in Rasmus Hojlund. Who could the main contenders be, and do you see a swap deal potential between the two players and two clubs?
Yeah, I think Rasmus Hojlund to Leipzig's difficult because of the fact the player came out and said he wants to fight for his place. But also remember, Leipzig have got no European football, which is very strange for them. And given that Rasmus Hojlund wants to be playing in long-term European or Champions League football, I don't see him leaving Manchester United for that kind of project, even though, of course, Man United have got no European football. But I think Hojlund believes if he stays at Man United in the long run over the course of a contract, there'll be more seasons with Champions League or European football than without. The other issue is Manchester United's valuation of Hojlund if they were to try and do two separate deals, because ultimately they don't want to make a book loss on Rasmus Hojlund. Could he be loaned for a season and then come back? Yes, in theory, from Manchester United's perspective, but I think Hojlund might put a roadblock on that. So this idea that Hojlund and Šeško will be intertwined, I think might be difficult. The other thing in this saga is that because they've got no European football, Leipzig want to bring in money, and some say need to bring in money. So they may have the ability to do that through Xavi Simons, but Šeško's the one all summer that they've been thinking we can get good money for. And that's why taking a player will not necessarily be that routine. Plus the fact that even if Manchester United and Leipzig agreed, you've got the Hojlund factor in. He is on record only a couple of days ago as saying that he wants to stay at Manchester United. He needs to be informed by the club he's surplus to requirements, which hasn't happened yet, if he's to maybe change his perspective. And then were he to leave, I think he's leaning towards maybe Italy. And there's been a few different Serie A clubs throughout this window that have made some inquiries over Rasmus Hojlund. And then specifically on Šeško, I think Manchester United are more confident than Newcastle. They believe the player is going to wait for them. But you've got to strike a deal with Leipzig. And as Arsenal found, the price hasn't really dropped so far throughout the window. Leipzig are quoting both Newcastle and Manchester United at 75 million euros plus add-ons. Both Newcastle and Manchester United value Benjamin Sesko at closer to 70 million euros all in. So it's not a huge gulf in valuation, but Leipzig haven't really shown any flexibility. Let's see if that changes as the days tick away from this window. The tactics of the two clubs are a bit different as well. So Manchester United think they've got buy-in from the player and are now moving to see if they can agree terms in the hope that Newcastle back off. And then ultimately there's one suitor and they can drive the price down with player buy-in. Newcastle, if they stay in this race, are more inclined to just put down what it takes to Leipzig, thinking maybe Manchester United will not match that number and they might be the ones that back off. And then regardless of Sesko's preference to join Manchester United over Newcastle, if he has to make a straight choice between Newcastle Premier League, Champions League football, better money versus staying at Leipzig, he'll then pick Newcastle. So this race isn't over yet between the two clubs, but Newcastle are more focused on can they get an acceptance first from Leipzig, and Manchester United are hoping that player buy-in means that Leipzig become in a weaker position.
Ben, just to finish off, have we got an update on Alejandro Garnacho and his potential move, I should say, to Chelsea? It emerged yesterday that Chelsea have completed some background checks on the Manchester United player. For those that don't know the background checks, what would that include? Is that just, I don't imagine it's going through his social media and seeing what kind of person he is or getting in contact with friends. But what does that actually mean? Or have I hit the nail on the head right there?
No, a background check just means all your due diligence, and it can be looking at data, it can be looking at personality, it can be speaking to teammates or coaches, it can be understanding whether anyone already at Chelsea Football Club knows him. For example, Enzo Fernandez, what's he like in the dressing room? What kind of character is he? Because Chelsea know if they sign Alejandro Garnacho, there's still going to be heavy competition because they've added Jamie Gittins, Tyreek George is there, Pedro Neto can switch sides, Giovanni Quenda arrives in a year's time. So there will eventually be lots of options on the left-hand side. But right now, Quenda hasn't arrived, Mikhailo Mudryk is unavailable, Jadon Sancho went back to Manchester United, and Tyreek George could even be loaned for his development. So Chelsea may feel that in the short term, they need a bit more depth on that left-hand side. And my understanding is that it's Alejandro Garnacho as an option on the left and still Xavi Simons through the centre. So it's not either or, it's potentially both. And I think Chelsea are waiting at the moment because they think Manchester United's price may drop as the window progresses. So they've done their due diligence. They like the idea of Garnacho. We'll have to wait and see if it's a permanent offer, in which case Manchester United would want above 40 million. And some sources say closer to between 50 and 60. Or do they go back and try and fill the void in the short term with a try before they buy, like they did with Jadon Sancho? So a loan with an obligation, but maybe some kind of override or penalty fee in case they want to send him back. And that may be Chelsea's preference, but obviously Manchester United like the idea of resolving Alejandro Garnacho permanently, getting the pure profit on the books, and that allows them to move in the market too. So it's a fascinating scenario whereby both buyer and seller are not really on the same page, and Chelsea are waiting because they want the price to drop and they're focused ultimately on Xavi Simons for now. But I think Garnacho to Chelsea, and certainly Garnacho more broadly to a Premier League club, is something that's going to develop now in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'd be surprised if this is a deadline day scramble. I think Chelsea, even Villa, might now start to make their move as we head into the first 2 weeks of August, rather than letting the possibility of Garnacho run all the way down to the final minutes of the window.
Ben, I want to thank you very much for your time. Have a good weekend. Thank you for bringing us up to date with all of the transfer news. The Isak story. People, let us know your thoughts in the comment section just down below. And please remember to like and subscribe. See you later.